All right, good morning. Today we're going to talk about how to create a resume to get you noticed. As we're going through this, feel free to take notes or to actually start the work on your computer. Our goal today is just to really get words down on paper, and then you can go back and create formatting and things like that later. So when you're done and you've gone in and you've done some formatting, here's a couple of just basic formats that you can use. Doesn't require a lot of skill. But you'll see each of the sections on there, and this presentation will be made available to you so that you have examples of what it could look like. Here's another example of what it could look like. All right, so let's talk about what the purpose of your resume is. A resume isn't going to get you the job. It's going to get you an interview if you've done it right. It's strictly your calling card. It's the opportunity for you to introduce yourself to a potential employer and intrigue them enough that they want to bring you in for an interview. Typically, employers will they'll interview approximately 10 to maybe 20% of the applicants that actually apply. So it's important that your resume gets noticed. Your resume should answer 4 questions. The first one is, who am I? This is strictly your contact information, name, telephone number, email address. The next section is, what can I do? And this is something we call a summary or a summary statement. If you've already got a resume, it's possible that you've got an objective on there. And the objective is great and has been the way that we've done things for a long time. But over the last few years, we've seen a change to now trend over to something we call a summary statement versus an objective. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences and why things have gone that direction in a few minutes. The next couple of sections are, what have I done? So your experience, your skills and qualifications, accomplishments if you need to. And we'll talk about when it would be appropriate to do a separate accomplishments section versus maybe putting those things under a different category. And then finally, what do I know? So your school, where you're going to school, if you've taken any college classes, being able to list things like that. You want to keep your resume to a single page. That being said, you don't want it to be less than a page either. So 1 page. And sometimes it's a matter of playing with spacing. You may feel like if you don't have a job, how are you going to fill up that page? And we'll talk about some ideas of how you can do that in just a couple of minutes. You want to avoid borders and graphics. So, when employers are looking at your resume, they're scanning it. They're looking for keywords. They want those words to jump out at them. And sometimes if you put borders or graphics, that can detract from the words on paper. So you want to keep it very simple and easy to read. For the most part, you're going to stick to a 12-point font. You want it to be a clean, professional-looking font, something like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman. Helvetica is another one that I like. So you want to stick, for the most part, to a 12-point font. There are some exceptions. So for example, your name and your headings, maybe you'll make that a little bit bigger, maybe a 14 or a 15-point font. You can bold your name and your headings. You can underline them if you want to. If you're struggling to keep your resume to a single page, so it's running off the page, it would be okay to move that 12-point font down to an 11, but I wouldn't go much smaller than that. And I think the important thing to remember is that there's not a single right format. So your resumes are subjective, meaning that if you show your resume to 3 different people, chances are you're going to get 3 different opinions. So I think at the end of the day, what you want to make sure that you're doing is staying true to who you are. Again, remember, this is your calling card, so you want to be comfortable with what's going out on your behalf. All right, so first section, who am I? So go ahead and just type your name, your telephone number, and your email address. Addresses are optional. I actually don't recommend that high school students put addresses on their resume. And the reason for that is that if you put yourself in the shoes of an employer for a second, if you're looking at 3 different resumes, 2 of those students live just a couple of blocks from your location. And you have another student whose resume looks great, but they live 5 miles from your location. Chances are the employer is going to look at those people that live close by. Reliability is a very real issue that employers have. And so transportation is typically one of those issues that comes up. So you just don't need to raise any questions in that employer's mind. So again, totally optional, not a deal breaker. If you want to put your address on there, that's totally okay. I happen to just recommend that you not do that. I don't have it on my own resume. You want to make sure that you've got an appropriate voicemail message and email address, and you want to use a personal email address. The district email, a few things happens. One, obviously you're not going to take it with you when you graduate. Also, they shut those down over the summer. And then the most important reason is that sometimes the firewalls at the district can be so tight, and that's for your protection, that an employer might try to email you and it wouldn't get through. So I highly recommend, if you don't already have a personal email address, go ahead and set one up. You do want to make sure that it's appropriate. So something that you can feel proud of. The most professional way is first name, last name at Gmail or Yahoo or whatever it is that you want to use. You also want to make sure, if you're looking for work, that you've got a voicemail box that's been set up. So many students that I talk to have never set up their voicemail box because we don't typically have people leaving messages. But if an employer's trying to get through to you, you want them to be able to leave a message. If they're going through 5 different resumes, they can't leave you a message, your resume goes to the bottom of the pile. They may or may not call you back. If they've got 4 other people that are strong candidates, then maybe they don't get to the bottom of that resume pile. However, if they leave you a message and you call them back, they're not really going to have the heart to tell you that you can't come in. So you want to make sure that you've got a voicemail box that's set up and that they're able to leave a message. Okay, so let's talk about the summary statement. This might be the most difficult part of your resume, and I've included some examples that we've written for you so that you can choose sentences from each of them or whatever you want to do. So a summary statement is essentially your elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is something you can tell somebody about yourself between the first and second floor of an elevator ride. So when it comes to your resume, this is 3 to 4 sentences summarizing your skills, really telling employers why you're the best person for that job. The summary statement is important. This is what's going to grab their attention. So think about it as the summary of a book. So if you've ever picked up a book and you read the back cover, oftentimes you make a decision about whether or not you're going to read that book based on that summary. So that's kind of what your summary statement is doing. It's intriguing that employer to want to see more. Now, I talked a couple minutes ago about this replacing the objective. Part of why we've leaned towards a summary statement versus an objective is that employers are saying, if you're sending your resume to me, I know what your objective is. I know that you want the job. So really what I want to know is, what is it that you can do for me? So rather than telling them what you want by putting an objective on there, your summary statement is telling them why they want you. Hopefully that makes sense. So here's a couple of examples. Friendly and energetic culinary student with excellent communication skills, teamwork oriented and reliable with ability to work with people of all ages. You'll see some key words in there. Friendly, energetic, teamwork oriented, reliable, the ability to work with people of all ages, excellent communication skills. All of these things are key to employers in almost any industry that you might go to work in. Here's another one, creative and energetic honor roll student with excellent communication skills, team-oriented and reliable with experience in customer service and leadership. So again, customer service skills, leadership skills, all of these are things that are important to an employer in any industry. All right, your next section is actually, before work experience, would be your skills and qualifications section. So if you remember, I said skills and qualifications is one of those areas, and I would put this right under your summary statement. So your summary statement is at the top, right under your contact information. The next thing I would do is a bulleted list of skills and qualifications. Strong work ethic, California Food Handlers card, CPR certified, skilled in Google Docs, those kinds of things. It doesn't even have to be complete sentences. It can be single words, reliable, professional. Those are all things. So you want to come up with a skills and qualifications section that is 4 to 5 short bullet points about your skills. Sorry. The next section is your work experience, or you can call it just experience. This is paid work experience, unpaid or volunteer experience. It can be school club or sports experience. So if you've done any kind of community service work, those would be listed here. One of the examples we've got here is the Father's House. So that becomes the employer, even if you're a volunteer there. The job title would be church volunteer, and then you list 3 or 4 things that you did in that. If you've done babysitting, so say you babysit for various families, there's nothing wrong with putting various families, Napa, California. Child care provider, I wouldn't call it a babysitter. Child care provider. Instead of saying watched kids, I might say supervised children's activities. Instead of fed kids, maybe you say prepared and served meals, interacted with parents, all of those things. So those are your bullet points of kind of some of those job duties. Here's a position that some of you may already have. Developed and prepared lesson materials distributed to students, ensured a safe and clean classroom environment, excellent rapport with students, teachers, and other school staff, extremely dependable in completing projects and meeting deadlines, ability to multitask in a fast-paced environment. This is a teacher's assistant, a TA. So if you've done this job and you have actually done some of these things, you can list this. Now, if you're a TA that just sits in the back of the room and does homework or things like that, maybe that's not a resume builder for you. But you certainly can list it if you are doing some of those duties. All right, the achievement section, and I talked earlier about this being an optional section. The only time I recommend a separate achievement section is if you're trying to fill up space. It's not that these other things are not important, but they can go under already existing sections of your resume. So for example, honor roll, yearbook team, ROTC member, FFA, culinary club officer, all of those things are things that could be listed under your education. And we'll talk about some of the things that you put under education in just a second when we get there. California Food Handlers Card, CPR certified. Those are things that could fall under your skills and qualifications. So again, that second section of your resume right under your summary statement. If you need to fill up space, if you just don't have enough information, then you can use this as a separate section. So achievements is your heading. Again, you can make it bigger, you can bold it, you can underline it. All right, and then the final section is your education. So this could be American Canyon High School, Vintage High School, wherever it is that you go to school in the city. You can do class of 2020, 2021. If you'd rather say senior, junior, currently enrolled, whatever it is that you want to say on there is fine. I just happen to prefer class of whatever year you graduate. And then you can bullet things under your education that you're involved in at school. So varsity cheer squad, yearbook photographer, graphic design, guitar club. You can list CTE programs, culinary club officer. You want to highlight your GPA if it's a 3.0 or higher. List your AP or your college courses. Most employers don't care too much about integrated math 2 or chemistry or world history, but they do care about whether or not you're taking those as AP classes or honors classes. So if you want to list those, you certainly can. I would also recommend any CTE classes because of the nature of the hands-on training that you get. You can list those. If you've taken classes in college, so Napa Valley College, for example, if you've done a summer boot camp or you've done classes over the summer, I would list those as a separate entry. So underneath American Canyon High School, you would list Napa Valley College and then maybe the classes that you took there. So average time that a hiring manager is going to look at your resume. Typically what I hear when these classes are live is a minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. It's actually 15 to 30 seconds. So again, it's crucial that your resume grabs their attention And that summary statement in particular grabs their attention enough that they want to read further. Your strong summary statement could make the difference between 15 and 30 seconds. It might get you a minute, so you want to make sure that you add that in there. All right, so no matter what you do, make sure that you proofread your resume. There's nothing worse than seeing typos or misspellings or things like that on a resume. And it's important that when you think that your resume is absolutely perfect, give it to somebody else to read. Sometimes that fresh set of eyes makes all the difference in the world. I teach this for a living, yet I recently had my own resume reviewed, and the person that reviewed it found 3 typos. So it happens. It's easy to have happen. So just make sure that you proofread it, proofread it, proofread it. That being said, you also want to make sure that you're prepared for those different opinions. So you're going to have opinions like, no, you should have your address on here. If you feel strongly that you want it on there, put it on there. That's fine. You'll hear opinions about you need to have an objective. That's okay too. Again, not right or wrong. But again, the trend tends to be that there's this summary statement now. So you need to make sure that you know what it is that you want and how you feel about this document when the day is done, because you're the one who's sending it out to represent yourself. Okay, I want to invite all of you. I know this is not the traditional way of delivering this workshop, but I do want to invite anybody who wants me to review their resume to email it to me. Here's my email address. You can share it through Google Docs if that's easier, and I'm happy to review and make suggestions. Just again, let me know, and we're happy to help. I'm going to make sure that we've got some samples listed or dropped into Google Classroom for you. In that, there will also be some sample summary statements. So again, when you're writing your summary statement, don't reinvent the wheel. Take a few of those sentences that are in those samples. Don't maybe list them word for word, but change some things up a little bit and make it your own. If you're really struggling with a summary statement, sometimes it helps to ask an adult that you respect, how would they describe you in 30 seconds or less, and see what they have to say. And then you can pull some things from that. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.